back to the Aspiring Home Cook. My name is Trisha, and in today's video I'm going to show you, as promised, how I put together these beautiful tandoori spiced cauliflower wraps. In today's video I'm also going to share with you how I make those pickled onions, as well as a lovely coriander-lime chutney or dressing to use for these wraps. This recipe is entirely plant-based and everything is really easy to put together, and oh my god, it is so delicious. You definitely must give this a go. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started with the recipe. To start off with, I'm going to start by prepping my cauliflower. Now, for today's video, I'm not going to use the entire head of cauliflower. I'll use about half of this and save the other half for later. You can use as much or as little as you'd like. I'm going to start off by cutting my cauliflower into bite-sized pieces or little florets. Today I'm leaving them on the slightly smaller side because I'm going to use these little florets as the filling for my wraps. However, if you're serving this as a side dish or an appetizer, you can definitely cut these into slightly bigger pieces. Once your cauliflower has been washed and prepped, we're ready to start adding our seasonings. I'm going to start by seasoning it with a little salt. You can adjust the amount of salt to taste. And I'm going to drizzle a little oil over it. This oil will help the cauliflower cook up nicely, as well as it will help the spices stick to the cauliflower so that you're left with a tastier morsel. Next, I'm going to add my spices. Here I have 1/8 of a teaspoon of turmeric and garam masala powders each, 1/4 of a teaspoon of cumin powder, and 1/2 teaspoon each of red chili powder, coriander powder, and garlic powder. I'm going to mix all of these together so that I have a nice blend of spices going through the cauliflower. And I'm going to start by sprinkling about half that quantity of that spice rub on those cauliflower florets. With clean hands, simply go in, toss the cauliflower in that spice mix to ensure that the spices coat the vegetable really well. Now, while I'm doing this, what I forgot to mention is the chili powder that I've used is a Kashmiri chili powder, which is known for its bright color but is not very spicy. If you don't have access to Kashmiri chili powder, you can use any mild red chili powder. Now, once those spices have coated the cauliflower, if you're happy with that amount of cover, you're ready to bake your cauliflower. I felt like I could use a little more, so I've added a little more of that spice mix in here. And I'm going to toss it really well so that it coats every single piece of that cauliflower. Once that's done, you're ready to get started with the cooking process. I'm just going to line a baking tray with my trusty silicone mat, and I'm going to spread out those cauliflower pieces in one even layer, making sure that there's a little space between each of those florets so that I get a nice even browning on the outer edges. And I'm going to pop this into my oven. My oven's been preheated to 180 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to bake these for about 30 minutes or till the cauliflower pieces have cooked through. And make sure that you turn them over once at the halfway mark. While our cauliflower is cooking away, we're going to get the other bits for our recipe together. I'm going to start off by making my quick pickled onions. I'm using a little less than half of a red onion, like you can see here. I'm going to slice them into fairly thin slices. It doesn't really have to be paper thin, but the thinner you can go, the quicker it will pickle. And this is a fairly simple process. I'm going to start by separating those layers of onions so that it pickles a little faster. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt over it. Remember, we are not going to drain or wash the salt off, so don't go too crazy with the salt at this point. And we're going to add a little bit of lime juice to help pickle our onions. Like you can see, I'm not using a whole lot here. Squeezing just a little bit of lime juice over. This salt and lime will help mellow down the bite from the onion, and it tastes really great in these kind of wraps. You can add them to your vegetable bowls and they make a really great accompaniment to a lot of different meals. Okay, we're just going to toss this around really quickly, and we're going to set this bowl aside and let it rest and pickle away while we continue prepping the rest of our ingredients. The last but ever so important component of these wraps is that beautiful coriander-lime chutney. Typically, yogurt would be used as a base for this chutney, but since we're making it plant-based today, I'm going to be using some cashew seeds instead. Over here, I've got a 1/4 cup of cashew seeds. These are just plain raw cashew seeds, not salted or roasted. I'm just going to soak them in a little water from a kettle that was just recently boiled. We're going to let this soak away for about 20 to 30 minutes. When you're ready to put together that chutney, go and grab your blender jar and we're going to prep the rest of our ingredients. I've got a small bunch of fresh coriander leaves and stalks that I'm just roughly going to cut down. Now to this today, I'm adding 1 green chili. This is not a very spicy chili and it's also slightly on the smaller side. Feel free to adjust the amount of chili to your liking. I'm using 1 clove of garlic and a few mint leaves. I've got about 10 to 12 mint leaves in there. All of this goes into that blender jar. To this, I'm going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin powder. I'm going to season this with a little bit of salt, and we're also going to add those cashew seeds. I'm going to drain all of that warm water out and add these seeds to my blender. To this, I'm going to add about a 1/4 of a lime. Again, you can adjust this to suit your liking. Start with a little bit. You can always taste that chutney once it has come together and adjust all your seasoning accordingly. And I almost forgot, we're going to add a teeny tiny bit of ginger. I'd say about a 1/4 teaspoon's worth. I've just chopped that down into smaller pieces to help that grind faster. Now to this blender jar, I'm just going to add about 1 to 2 tablespoons of water, just a smidge to get things going. I'll just pop the lid on and all that's left to do is blitz this till it forms a nice little paste. And this is what I ended up with, a fairly thick and chunky paste. It's nowhere close to where I need it to be. So I'm just going to add a little more water, just about another couple of spoons to get it into a smoother and finer consistency. Now this is a good opportunity to give things a little bit of a mix and taste to check and see if you need to add more salt or lime, or for that matter, more coriander or mint. That's the beauty of this chutney. You can actually tweak this, adjust the level of all of those ingredients to make it just the right level for you. I'm going to add a little bit more salt in here and a little bit more lime juice. So in all, I ended up using about half a lime. And we're going to blitz this all together till it comes together. And you should end up with a nice, beautiful, creamy dressing that looks like this. Now, I've left this chutney slightly on the thicker side because it's going to be used in a wrap. If it's too thin, it'll just drip right through that wrap and turn everything soggy, and I don't want that. However, if you're serving this over a salad and you want to use this as a dressing, feel free to add a little bit more water and make it a little more of a drizzling consistency. Your chutney is ready. You can now decant this into a bowl or a jar and store the rest refrigerated to use at another time. This will keep in the fridge easily for about a week. Now we're just going to peep at our cauliflower. It's about halfway through that cooking process right now. The cauliflower started developing a lovely color. I'm just going to use a knife to pierce it through to check and see if it's tender. It has cooked a fair bit, but it's not quite as tender as I'd like it to be. So I'm just quickly going to give everything a good toss. Just flip everything over so that it cooks evenly on both sides. And this goes back into the oven for another 10 to 15 minutes. Our cauliflower is finally ready. It's out of the oven. It's beautifully tender and it's got those lovely little brown tips that are so tasty. It smells just wonderful and I know it's going to taste fabulous. So I'm just going to take this off the pan and plate it up. Now, if you're serving this up as a side dish, dress it up with a few sprigs or a few leaves of coriander. and serve it up with some of that coriander-lime chutney. And it is absolutely to die for. It's got all those beautiful familiar spices that one associates with a tandoori chicken or a tandoori vegetable dish of sorts, but it's come together with minimal effort and still is so tasty. But we're not stopping here today. We're going to go ahead and assemble our wraps. I'm using homemade flour tortillas. I've just recently shared this recipe on my channel. If you haven't seen that yet, I'll leave a link right here so that you can go check it out later. And I'm just going to start layering all of those beautiful ingredients. First, I'm going to put in that lovely roasted tandoori spiced cauliflower. I'm going to drizzle a little bit of that chutney over. Now you can be as generous or as scarce with this as you'd like. For a little crunch, I'm going to add some thinly sliced green peppers or capsicum. You can use red or yellow peppers if you've got those on hand too. To this, I'm going to add our pickled onions. Now, like you can see here, they're not quite as crisp and as harsh to the taste as they started out. They've mellowed out a fair bit. I'm going to pop in some salad greens here, and I'm going to give this a little spritz of fresh lime juice just over to bring everything together. And with all of those components on there, I'm going to try as neatly as I possibly can to bring this together to form a wrap. But before I do that, I'm going to sprinkle a few coriander leaves over. Now make sure that your tortilla has been warmed before you stuff it with all of this goodness. Wrap it up, and there you have it. Isn't that just gorgeous? This not only looks good, but oh my word, it tastes absolutely divine. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's recipe. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with family and friends that you think will enjoy it too. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel, and once you do, don't forget to click that little bell icon so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you really soon with another delicious recipe. So till then, take care. Bye.